Today, I want to talk to you about leadership attitudes. There's a piece of management theory that goes back some decades now that is ascribed to someone by the name of McGregor. You may have heard of it, but it has rather fallen out of fashion. Like a lot of the old management theories, there's a lot of merit in them, but as we discover more and more about what makes people tick, then some of the older models have fallen by the wayside. So McGregor put forward the idea that there are two types of manager, and he called them the X type and the Y type. Nothing to do, I should add, with the modern notion of Generation X and Generation Y. So McGregor said that these two types of manager had completely different attitudes to their role as leaders of other people. So he said the X type of manager is the manager who believes that everybody who works for him is at heart lazy, good for nothing, perhaps dishonest, and as soon as his back's turned, will put their feet up and do absolutely nothing. Contrast that with McGregor's Y type of manager. The Y type of manager, he said, believed that everybody in his team was good-hearted and wanted to do a good job and would give their best and liked to succeed. And when he wasn't there, his team would still work hard and do their best to achieve their goals. You might pause for a moment and consider which one of those two most closely describes your attitude to being a manager. Or perhaps you're on a spectrum somewhere in between the two. Now, the interesting thing about this is not simply to say there are two sorts of manager. We can all come up with reasons why there are two sorts of manager. But what McGregor said was that the X type of manager would actually find that because he believed that the people that worked for him were essentially good for nothing, then that's how they would behave. That if the manager thought that as soon as his back was turned, his staff would stop working, then in fact they would. McGregor further observed that the manager with the Y type of attitude, because he believed that his staff were essentially committed to what they were doing, wanted to succeed, wanted to achieve their goals, and that they would carry on working hard even when the manager wasn't there, that generally was what that manager would notice. So it seems as though whatever you believe about the people that work for you becomes true. Of course, that fits very neatly with the NLP notion that perception is projection, that what we see in the world around us is in some way determined by our own attitudes. Or if you think of it another way, there's more than one way of experiencing what goes on. We only live in our own version of reality, not some kind of objective, single-point reality. So if what you believe becomes what you experience, it might be time to take stock of what you believe about the people that you work with on a daily basis. And this doesn't just apply if you're a team leader or a manager or a business owner. It also applies to all the relationships that you have in your working life, and indeed outside of your working life. So if you believe that someone doesn't want to cooperate with you, then probably they won't. So how about today you just pick someone who you know that you don't get the best out of, you don't have a great relationship with, and just examine your own attitudes to that person. Ask yourself, can you shift your attitude so that you get a different result from someone who perhaps has not been a great ally in the past? That's an interesting thought, isn't it? Because if you can, just by shifting your attitude, get a shift in other people's behaviour, that could be really powerful. Now, I can tell you from my own experience that this isn't just theory. Some years ago, I was working with a director who had a department of about 40 or 50 people. And I'd worked with him in a previous role, and when he took up the new job, he asked me to go and do some similar work to that I'd done with him in his previous job. He actually said to me, "I need you to come and help me turn," quote, "this ragtag and bobtail into a world-class team." I was slightly embarrassed by his choice of words. It's not a very complimentary thing to say about your own department, is it? So I went along and we worked together and we did some of the same things that we know help get people really committed to what they're doing and working well together as a team. And at the end of some months of doing this kind of work, the director decided he would take his whole department away for a weekend to do some team building and also to celebrate some successes in projects they'd been working on. Somewhere during that weekend, his attitude changed. Somewhere during that weekend, he said to me, "Do you know, I think I have a world-class team." And it was around that time that I started to notice people in his team holding their heads up and behaving as if they were a world-class team. In fact, believing that they are a world-class team. And it's my belief that that came principally from the shift in the director's attitude. So don't take my word for it. Have a go for yourself, because you never know what you can achieve in the outside world just by shifting what goes on inside your head.